I think we're ready. Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to our 5th community listening session regarding traffic stops. We appreciate you all coming out tonight and sharing your feedback on traffic stops policy. There are also some of my fellow commissioners who have joined us tonight and are seated in the audience. And so I want to acknowledge Commissioner Angel Ruby Navarijo, who's waving his hands there. And I would also like to acknowledge our colleagues of the district council. So I know that Deidre O'Connor is here, Murillo Garcia, Brian Ramsom, Darrell Dakers, and Jenny Safer. And Sam Schoenberg. Yay. Thank you all for being here. My name is Ramel Terry, and I serve as the Vice President of the Commission for those who are not familiar with me. And so just wanted to begin the conversation about why we're here today. And so before we begin today's listening session, I do want to give a bit of details about the work that has been happening thus far. And so many months ago, the independent monitor in the consent decree indicated that traffic stops by the Chicago Police Department should be included in the consent decree. That means that any changes to be made related to CPD's traffic stops would be made through the consent decree process, and new policies would be overseen by the independent monitor and the federal judge in our case. While CPD has policies that govern police interactions, no single policy existed that explicitly covered traffic stops. If traffic stops were going to be added to the consent decree, commissioners made it very clear that the CCPSA, who has the legal authority to make CPD policy, must be included in the policy-making process. It is important that any new policy on traffic stops remains a community-driven process. Since then, the CCPSA has commenced policy discussions with the department and the Department of Law related to the development of a traffic stops policy. And here's the timeline for what to expect with respect to the policy. On April 21st, CCPSA will receive a draft of the policy from the Chicago Police Department. That draft policy will be made public on April 24th. It will be posted on our website along with the commission's initial feedback on the policy and a new form for community members to share feedback on both. At our April 24th commission meeting, we will make a presentation on the draft policy to give community members an overview of what the policy covers. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to share their impressions of the policy. After that, we will be kicking off the second phase of our community engagement. This phase engagement will be centered around the draft policy. We will be holding targeted focus groups, working with our district counselors, and holding a community event to receive feedback. We want to make it clear that this first draft is not the final policy. We will continue to engage with community to solicit feedback. I will now turn it over to Commissioner Wortham.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sandra Wortham, and I will follow up on my colleagues' remarks to give you just a little bit more information about what we've been doing and what we're going to do this evening. So over the last 6 months, CCPSA has held multiple listening sessions. This is one of them throughout the city, received feedback on our online forum, and heard from many of you at our monthly meetings regarding what you'd like to see regarding a policy on traffic stops. As Commissioner Terry indicated, While we are close to the first draft of a policy, this is not at all the end of our engagement with community. We want to continue to hear from community, and that means from all perspectives of the community, regardless of your position on traffic stops. We want to hear you if you are a Chicagoan impacted by this work. Some of the things we're hoping to learn from you tonight: what is your experience with traffic stops? What are your public safety concerns? What types of training and guidance should we ensure our police have when they're conducting traffic stops? What types of oversight and accountability should govern traffic stops? And really any other thoughts you have related to traffic stops in Chicago. With that, the floor is yours. So I'm going to call up our first three speakers. In order to make sure that we have an opportunity to hear everyone, we would ask that you limit your comments to 2 minutes. And we have a wonderful timekeeper who will remind you as you get close to the 2 minutes. And when I call your name, please step to the microphone. All right. So the first three speakers are Brian Ramson, Darrell Dakers, and Patrick McNeil.
Hi, my name is Dr. Brian Ramson. Do I need to spell it? Okay. So I typically try to keep my mouth shut and keep my attention focused on the work of the district, but I believe I have special experience here. I moved to Chicago in 2013. Since then, I've been pulled over about 50 times. Since I've been sworn in, I've been pulled over probably about 4 times. I've also watched 2 people bleed out in front of my house. So what I really want to make sure that we're paying attention to is that this is a nuanced space, and that while I agree with the spirit of what we're trying to do with limited pretextual traffic stops, what I think is important to recognize is that there is a delicacy in how we approach this policy, and that when you change things, it really changes how things work in the 11th district, which is who I represent. So what this means, at least for what I've seen from police officers in my district, is that they use traffic stops as a way of going around some of the limitations that they're finding and try to enforce drug laws. And this has been one of the major issues we're having in our district, is that people don't feel safe because there are open air drug markets all over the 11th district. So one of the things I'd like to urge is that as you look over the policy and as you make decisions about how these things should be implemented, that you try to really approach the situation with nuance and a perspective that emphasizes the people who have the I guess the quietest voices in the room. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Counselor. Can I go? Oh, well, thank you all for listening in and having this listening session on the north side. For the record, my name is Darrell Dakers. I'm a counselor for the 20th District. And my experience with police have not always been that great in terms of traffic stops. I've been a victim of false identity, like a victim of basically police brutality. I've been in situations where I was a lookalike. They thought I was somebody else and they pulled the car over, roughed me up. And those circumstances did not equate to a crime. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I didn't do anything wrong. And what I've learned since I've been elected and my work in violence prevention is, although I have not been pulled over as recently or frequently as I have before I got into this work, but my participants are still going through those same travesties. They're getting pulled over for basically poverty issues. They couldn't afford to get a tag or a sticker, and that causes them to get harassed by the police or pulled over, hemmed up, and that causes them to have other infractions in their life. You're late for work, you're missing appointments. It's things that leads to issues that are not because a person is a criminal. You couldn't afford to get a tag or you couldn't afford certain things. So this targeted practice, I hope to stop, and I don't want I want the commission to have a voice in terms of pretextual stops. I don't think that it should transfer over to the consent decree. They are the numbers aren't adequate right now as far as their success rate. And I fought for the consent decree. I'm not saying that they're useless. I'm just saying that we have more power in terms of the CCPSA, and the people elected us to be their voice. So I want to exercise that practice. And everybody who is being pulled over under these circumstances, I want to give them a fair chance. If we can do this workforce allocation and see that we can even add civilian jobs to non-criminal practices, then I believe the communities will be safer. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patrick McNeil, and I live in the 20th district. I want to say I strongly support a policy that allows the police to pull over cars that have expired license plates or running through stop signs or reckless driving, because people who do not follow those small rules are more likely to have guns in the car. They take so many guns off the street, and I am impacted by that because every gun that's off the street makes me, as a resident of the city, safer. I know there's some officers here today. I want to thank them for what they do. And I think about the officers who've lost their lives in the last few years, like Ella French, who lost her life in a totally justified traffic stop. They risked their lives to keep me safe. And I want a policy that continues to take the guns off the street. Thank you.
All right, our next three speakers are, okay, and guys, forgive me if I mess it up. Ladero, okay, Ladero Gossel, Adrian Martinez, and Omar Dacres. Dakers, I'm being too complicated. Thank you, okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ladero Goss Ill. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm here to propose 2 common sense community centered reforms to how police officers conduct traffic stops in our city. First is to prohibit low-level, non-safety related traffic stops as a pretext for further investigations. We're talking about things like expired tags for under 60 days, air fresheners on the mirrors, or even broken license plates, lights. These minor infractions are often used to justify stops that escalate into confrontations, especially in the Black and brown communities. These are rarely about safety and often about control. Let's reserve stops for legitimate safety concerns like reckless driving, running red lights, DUIs, things of that nature. Secondly, mandatory quarterly de-escalation and communications trainings for all the officers. Every stop should begin with clear identification, a calm explanation for the stop, and a respectful tone. Officers should be trained in trauma-informed engagement, cultural competence, and how to communicate effectively with civilians that may be scared, confused, or even agitated. This isn't about reducing harm, it's about building trust and professionalism in every encounter. In short, let's stop criminalizing poverty and focus on public safety. These 2 reforms can go a long way towards protecting our communities, both the integrity and the department. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Adrian Martinez. I'm an outreach worker for Rogers Park in Uptown. And I just wanted to say that I know being an officer is a really hard job, especially at this time, but there needs to be a policy to where the community is also safe from the police when they're not doing their job the right way. And they're just, kind of just taking out their frustrations on from other people or other cases on you. I've been a victim of multiple times being pulled over and they're approaching me with their guns drawn to where I'm in a fear for my life. I've been a passenger in cars and it's still been approached that way by the police. So I think that we need to find a policy to keep the community safe from the people that are supposed to protect them. Thank you.
Room full 2 minutes. It's okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Omar Dakers. I am a victims advocate for Rogers Park and Uptown through the organization of One Northside. I mean, let's be honest here. We're all here for the same thing, public safety, correct? We're here to protect the people so everyone feels safe in their community. Now, I've been a victim of pretextual stops. I got pulled over in a car and I wasn't even driving it. I was asked to get out of the car because I fit the description of someone who robbed someone of a cell phone and ran away from them. Now, I don't know if you saw me come down the stairs. If I ran away with something of yours, you didn't want it. So let's just be clear about that. It's a matter of safety. It's a matter about keeping people safe and having them feel safe in their communities. Now, I'm not here to counteract anyone's argument, how they feel about police, but let's talk about the countless lives of civilians that were lost based off pretextual stops. Let's talk about the people who didn't make it back home, who children who are gonna grow up without their fathers and sons, and we can go on and on. The point that I'm trying to make is that we're all here for public safety in our communities, and this is our community, and most of the time, speaking for myself, I just don't feel safe. Stop this, please. Thank you.
All right, our next three speakers are, oh, this is it? Oh, our next speaker is Rolando C.
There we go. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rolando Cabrera, outreach worker for Rogers Park and Uptown Community. Same thing like everybody's here for, public safety. Countless times I've been pulled over, especially when I have my kids in the car too. Always being asked, is there any weapons in the car? Is this your actual car? You know what I mean? They don't believe, like a young man with me with 3 kids and a wife. They don't believe that is actually my car. They're always asking for registration, not even like telling me why I'm getting pulled over, just straight asking me, hey, you got a driver's license, you got registration, you got any weapons in the car, just straight asking me questions like that out the blue. And I'm over here asking, like, why am I getting pulled over? They're just continually asking me, do you have the things we're asking you for? And honestly, like, I'm getting really tired of everything like that. Nowadays, whenever I see them behind me and don't even pull over, I'm getting paranoid. Why? Because I'm always driving around with my kids, running errands, doing my job, trying to make sure I'm being there for my participants and everything, and getting tired of that. So yeah.
I want to thank all of the speakers who have already shared their thoughts, but give opportunity to anyone who has not had an opportunity to speak. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic and be sure to say your name and then you can leave your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. My name is Karen Goldner. I live in the 48th Ward, 20th Police District in the Edgewater neighborhood. I also moved to Chicago in 2013. I have never once been pulled over by a Chicago police officer, and I think that's really all I wanted to say.
Good evening, commissioners. Thanks for having us. My name is Mauricio Garcia. I am a district councilor for the 19th district. I live 5 minutes away from here. I just wanted to come in and talk about the racial disparity in pretextual traffic stops. I've been fortunate enough to never be pulled over, but I know that brown people like me are 2.5 times more likely to be pulled over, 3 times more likely here in the 19th district. My black neighbors are actually 7 to 8 times more likely to be pulled over in the 19th district and across the city of Chicago. Another thing that I wanted to mention, based off of the Free to Move Coalition's report, they noted that in 2024, 0.75% of traffic stops resulted in confiscations of guns. That's required over almost 300,000 traffic stops. If we're talking about more effective policing, this isn't it. We constantly talk about how short-staffed and resource-dependent we are in this city. This just doesn't seem to be one of the tactics to actually get that done. So I would very much recommend taking these numbers and these statistics into consideration when you develop a new policy. And just keep in mind that if we are relying on tactics like this that are frankly unconstitutional, then we have a broken system and we need to think of better ways. So I appreciate that your efforts are trying to correct that. So thanks.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sam Schoenberg. I'm Murillo's colleague on the 19th Police District Council. Thanks for coming to the 19th District for this listening session. We in our district have presented on this issue. A year ago today, we spent a full meeting of our district council on this topic. I'm glad to see the commission is focusing on it. As Murillo just mentioned, I think it bears repeating, in our district, the 19th, we see relatively few traffic stops compared to other districts, but they're very racially disparate. If you're a Black driver in our district, you're 7 times more likely to be stopped than a white driver. For a Latino driver, that's 2.5 to 3 times more likely. I myself, like Karen, who spoke before, have never been stopped by a police officer for a traffic stop. It's just not an experience that I have mostly here. But I do know that when I am singled out for suspicion, seemingly for no reason, this mostly happens to me at the airport. I am never more angry. I know that sounds like a trite example, but I know that if I were even once, let alone continuously singled out for suspicion because of how I looked, because of the neighborhood where I lived in, I would find that intolerable. And the data that we have shows that we stop hundreds of thousands of people seemingly for no reason, seemingly based on where they live and the color of their skin in our city. I don't think that that's fair or that it engenders trust in our police. And as far as the collection of guns and drug contraband, the numbers seem paltry and not to justify the huge swath of people that were sweeping up into these police actions. And so I would advocate that the commission take action to limit the types of stops that are most necessary for traffic safety and public safety. Things like an expired license plate, while we do need that revenue, while people need to have their license plates up to date, are not a great reason to stop people, especially when we're using it for reasons other than pure traffic safety. So I'd urge you to take action, and thank you very much.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for being here. My name is Patrick Armstrong. I live in Ravenswood, Lincoln Square in the 20th District. I've only lived in Chicago for about 2 years. Previously, I lived in Georgia and New Orleans, Louisiana. I do not have any experience with Chicago PD traffic stops, but I do have a lot of experience with pretextual traffic stops in other jurisdictions. That is why I'm against traffic stops in almost all instances, as restrictive as that policy can be to the police. I find no reason for expired tags, broken brake lights, things of that nature. And I have found that most often those stops, in my experience, have been used as a way police are trying to get around Fourth Amendment protections of the people they are pulling over. And they are doing so to create crimes where no real crime is being committed from these people. I know that there's a lot of folks who say don't do anything wrong and you won't be stopped by the police. I've heard that when talking with a lot of folks, but my experience has been different with this. Like a lot of folks here, whenever I've had shorter hair than this, I've been stopped, detained, and investigated 0 times by any police in any jurisdiction. When I've had longer hair than this, down to past my shoulders, I've been stopped 27 times, been threatened with arrest 4 times. And I understand that during those stops, the police have lied to me, they have harassed me, they have threatened me in all of those instances. And I never even got a ticket during any of those aspects because I was never doing anything wrong. I think if we get when you go to the police, we need to get Fourth Amendment training, de-escalation training. Every traffic stop should require a field stop card. In New Orleans, their consent decree requires this of every police stop, whether it's on foot or in traffic. And if you go to the consent decree, that's something that you can ask them to do. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jenny Schaefer. I am the 3rd of the 19th District Council members. One of the things, sorry, one of the things that we talk about quite a bit in our district is, and hear from our residents quite a lot, is that they want to see officers spending more time in community, walking the beats, talking with neighbors, getting to know the people in the district. And when they're spending so much of their time responding to traffic stops, and that is a tremendous opportunity loss of being able to speak with neighbors. And one of the things we really talk about is we have this limited number of police officers in Chicago, and we really need to think about how to use them most efficiently and most effectively. And the data, as my colleagues have shared before, just does not show that traffic stops are the most efficient and effective way to do the type of policing that we want to be seeing done in the community. It also really doesn't work to build community trust. That is an important part of being our district council job, is working to build trust between community and the police. So we'd like to see your policy really work to reduce the number of traffic stops that are being done by CPD, as well as I've heard of programs in other cities for things like expired license or taillights out. Those are things that people need to make sure they stay on top of. But how can we make sure that people get the resources so that instead of punishing them and just writing them a ticket and then they're still have their taillight expired, how can we make sure that they, get the taillight fixed and actually help them move on their way? Thank you very much.
Hi, Commissioners. Thank you for holding this hearing on the north side, or listening session on the north side. My name is Anna Rubin. I'm another one of the 20th district counselors, along with Darrell and Deirdre. And so I just wanted to speak tonight, really just double tapping and plus oneing a lot of the other things that you've heard from the other district counselors here from 19 and 20 this evening, as well as residents in the 20th district. Here to hope that as you are writing a policy around traffic stops, you will direct CPD to stop prioritizing traffic stops as a tool to fight crime, when we know that is something that does not work. And it just feels like the very premise of that framing is pre-textual, and that it is not actually ever really the impetus for what we are trying to, the reasons that people are conveying they are pulling people over for these traffic stops. And we hope that you will prioritize not the enforcement of actual serious traffic safety risks, as opposed to things like expired registration, non-functioning taillight, non-functioning license plate lights, improperly displayed license plates. Recognizing to Jenny's point that she just made, often things that result from that include just ticketing and forcing people to pay fines and fees if the traffic stop goes well. That is not actually moving people to have a more functional car or a safer environment for anyone. So nonsensical at its best and actively harmful if things do not go well at its worst. Thank you so much.
Hey, hi, how's it going? My name is Zarell Davis, supervisor for the One Northside team in the Uptown and Rogers Park area. Just for being like a resident of Chicago, staying on all sides of the town, north side, west side, south side, something I noticed when it comes to the north side, when it comes to pretextual stops, I'm definitely a victim of being pulled over many of times, even at times of me working, doing the job that I do. It's been a lot of times that I've been pulled over, but one thing I have noticed about being up north, you get pulled over more for being black, and one thing we go through a lot up here is when they do see you that you are black, they want to follow you, they want to read your plates, make sure that you got everything correct on your car. And there's times you can tell like there's a big difference when you go out west or out south, because out south or out west, when you're in a black community, you might have a missing headlight, you might have a missing tail light, and that also might come to you and say something, and sometimes they don't really say nothing. They might just say, get it fixed. But on the north side, that's a reason to pull you over. That's a reason to pull you out your car. That's a reason to just follow you because you're black or you're brown. So I'm definitely a victim of, pretextual stops. And I definitely feel as if, when it comes to the north side of Chicago, it needs to be some type of change in that, because we've been going through it for a while now. Since I was like probably in my teenage years. So yeah, that's pretty much.
We have another speaker, Jackie Baldwin. I believe someone is bringing you the microphone.
Thank you for the accommodation. Hi, Jackie Baldwin. I'm an organizer at JCUA with our Community Safety Committee, and I'm also a lifelong resident of Chicago who unfortunately has been stopped several times. And it's weird when I'm stopped because I have a nephew with dreadlocks, and I'm almost assured every time he's in the car with me, seems like we get pulled over for the most innocuous things. And there have been times where I, before I was the cane queen, I drove a sports car, and it unfortunately had like the gold package. It was, you know, I didn't know anything about these things being youthful oriented, so I frequently got stopped. It seemed like because I had this gold trim on the car, but these stops have never been because of any safety violation. But what I will say too is this is not only a tool that causes harm and doesn't solve crime. I've come to learn that it's really just a tool that creates an economy. It mires people in losing jobs and carrying extra debt for legal fees. It actually sank my family almost economically when we had a relative, we had to provide childcare and things like that. So I appreciate you all taking the time to listen and understand the personal impacts that this has. And I do want to say, I appreciate the work that the commissioners are doing and your service to all Chicagoans and really trying to allow people the space to talk about this. So thank you, and thank you for listening and understanding that it does affect young people. It's still affecting older folks, but the most important thing is it can really dissolve people financially over small petty crimes that are not impacting crime count or anything. Thank you.
Thank you all again. Thank you for those who had not signed up but came to the mic. And so before we conclude this conversation, I did want to extend again an opportunity for anyone who has not been able to provide comments, if you wanted to come to the mic. Okay. Well, again, thank you all for being here. As we spoke about at the beginning of this meeting, this is still the first phase of this process. The draft policy, as we mentioned, will be made available on April 24th. And so my hope is that you all continue to stay engaged and that you provide feedback on that policy, as well as encourage others to engage in our work beyond this policy, because we're doing so many other things as it relates to public safety in the city of Chicago. And so we want to continue all the necessary conversations. And so again, you can follow us on all of our various social media platforms at CCPSA Chicago. And again, I thank you all, and please know that the commission values your feedback. And so with that, I do want to wish everyone a great evening.